Today's interview is with Suni Rao. Suni, interesting story. She doesn't talk about it too much in here. She used to be a professional tennis player, so that's pretty cool in itself. But she invests in real estate and started investing out of state. And she just talks about why she decided to do that, how she went about it, team members, picking the market, all that good stuff. And now how she's built a portfolio of 9 doors. So really cool story. So make sure you check out all of this great interview. Hello and welcome to Wrestling with Real Estate, where we look to chokeslam all your real estate problems. I'm your host, former WWE wrestler and now Cirque du Soleil performer, and of course, multifamily real estate investor, Barri Griffiths. Now today we're joined by Suni Rao. Hey, Suni.
Hey, how are you?
I'm doing fantastic. This is the second time in a few days that we got to talk and have a great chat. I interviewed her for the Virtual Real Estate Masters Summit recently, which is going to be an awesome event. So I kind of know her story, but we're going to dive into some different stuff today. And, you know, anytime I get to talk to Suni is a good time. So I'm excited to have you on.
Oh, thanks for having me on. I definitely had a blast last time we chatted. So looking forward to this.
Cool. Well, do you want to sort of give the audience an introduction into sort of who you are and kind of what you've been up to?
Sure, yeah. So I am a real estate investor currently based out of Indianapolis, Indiana. I also invest in Indianapolis, Indiana. I wasn't always a local investor. I lived in the Boston area for 10 years, and that's where I started my real estate business. So I was working at my full-time corporate finance job, working my way through my MBA at Villanova University, and, you know, kind of decided that I needed to be able to branch out and have more streams of income where I didn't have to work all day and night in order to make that money, right? So I started investing in Indianapolis about 3 years ago while still having that very demanding schedule. And I ended up moving out here because I believed in long distance investing, but I just also really wanted the ability to kind of have an arbitrage opportunity, moving to a lower cost of living area, see what it was like to invest locally, compare that to like my long distance investing strategy and the way I'd executed that. And so that's kind of where I'm at right now. With my current portfolio, I have 9 doors. And it's funny because even though I am local, the majority of those doors, the larger share of those doors were actually purchased when I was an out-of-state investor. So I have a 9-door portfolio, mostly long-term rentals. I have 1 Airbnb thrown in the mix, and those were all purchased like through a variety of financing and like acquisition strategies off the MLS, off of wholesalers, direct to seller from like my agent off market. And then like I financed 1 with a debt partnership, house hacked 3, did 1 conventionally, 1 off seller financing, like all these random strategies, just because that was what fit at that moment. You know, you have to do what you have to do to get the deal done. And I had to do what I had to do. So that's kind of what brought me to where I am today.
That's very cool. And where's your Boston accent? I thought living there 10 years, you might have picked up some of a Boston.
I actually do sometimes compared to how I spoke. So I grew up in Florida, and when some of my Florida friends would come visit, they would be like, yeah, the way you pronounce your O's is not the same. But I have tried to kind of reset myself. I can't come out here to the Midwest and be like in the Boston, yeah, or however, you know, that's a horrible.
That's funny because it's people sometimes ask me if I'm from Boston because of being from the UK. I say car and bar. That's how I say it. Like I don't even. So when I say car and bar, they're like, "You're from Boston." I'm like, no, like the complete opposite. But I can hear it when people say, and I can understand that. Yeah. What back to the real estate. What you said that you wanted other streams of income, but what made you what attracted you to real estate? Like because you know, you can invest in the stock market, you can start your own business, you know, there's tons of other stuff that you can do, right? What was it about real estate that attracted you to it?
I liked the ability to influence and the ability to diversify, you know? So in the stock market, you can diversify through different stocks and different index funds, but with real estate, you can also better influence the outcome of the investment. You know, you don't really have much say in what the board's going to do in a company you invest in, unless you have a lot of money and like you purchase a lot of stock, right? But with a house, like there's a better understanding of what could happen and like actions you can take to better influence the outcome of the cash flows that will ultimately be impacting your life. So I really liked that part of it, and that was one of the reasons I ended up choosing real estate.
Very cool. Yeah, I agree. I sort of a little bit of the control, right? You have some control over real estate. There's some things you can control, but if you're actively managing your property or you own your own property, you have a lot more control in that. And I like that control as well.
Definitely. I also think I like the kind of skills you need also to be able to understand what makes a good investment. I like to learn the story behind the house, and what would drive that into becoming the most profitable asset it can be, whether that's the area, the people around it, et cetera. So there's so many factors that influence a cash flowing asset. So it's really cool to be able to look at that and understand what those puzzle pieces are and how to make them work for you.
Yeah. So then when you decided to invest in real estate, you realized you were in the Boston market, and I'm guessing you realized, hey, this is not the easiest
Insane.
Yeah.
It was insane. So like I actually didn't invest for almost 2 years because I didn't have any money. I was in grad school and working, and every penny I made went back to grad school, and it was just like a lovely time, no time, no money, really no life. But I was at the time I was still studying, and I was looking at what was happening in the Boston market, and there was still a lot of like foreign direct investment from Asia, from China, people coming in and finding the Boston real estate very attractive for multiple reasons, many of which had nothing to do with cash flow, so like things like currency exchanges and various things like that, like really influence people who have wealth to buy real estate. Whereas my goals were a little bit different, that I wanted to build a cash flowing portfolio that I could use as a substitute for my W-2 income eventually. And so as I'm looking at the market, I'm seeing all of the people with wealth looking for a stable place to park their cash. You have like stable like asset values, property values, but you don't necessarily have that cash flow, or the cash flow is much lower compared to the dollars you're putting into the property. Like a duplex will go for like $500,000 and then maybe rent for like $2,000 each side. Like that doesn't quite work out. It's going to take a really long time and a lot of saving for me to be able to replace my W-2 income if every house costs $500,000, right? So I started looking at other places where there was a little bit more of kind of that arbitrage opportunity between what I would have to pay for the mortgage and the rent that I could get. And so I did a lot of research and found a bunch of cities actually that would have been good options, but ended up landing in Indianapolis.
And maybe talk us through that initial decision to change markets. So obviously you understood that you kind of had to, but was there a fear, that initial fear? Because a lot of people have that fear of investing in another state, right? Investing in another market. How can I do that? I'm here, blah, blah, blah. I need to be boots on the ground. Did you have that initial fear as well?
Yeah. Oh yeah, of course. I mean, so like I said, I didn't have money for a long time. And then we didn't talk about this. I had a different background before my corporate finance background. I was a professional tennis player for 10 years. And when I retired from that, I was also very poor, so I just known being poor for years and like struggling and saving, and then to work so hard to have this little nest egg, and that was like literally all I had, and to throw it at a house in a city I'd never been to. Yeah, it's scary. It's so scary. But for me, the fear of not being able to create my own future or influence my own future was much larger. So I think it really depends on like the kind of fear that you have. Like, is it the fear that you're going to allow to drive yourself further, or are you going to hide? Like, is it the fear that drives versus the fear that hides, or are you just going to cower and be like, I cannot do this because it's too much and I want to hide so that I don't have to face it. So like, I think the fear is always there, but it's like how you look at the situation, how you use it.
Yeah, that's so true. And people ask me that when I invest in real estate, and I say, I think what it was for me, like you said, the fear of not achieving my goals and getting to what I wanted was stronger than the fear of investing in real estate. Of course, there's fear, like you said. Someone who says they don't have fear, I think they're lying, right? Or they're trying to play up to the cameras
Well,
or
they're
whatever
either
it is.
foolish or
Yeah,
incredibly brave.
right,
So
yeah, yeah,
choose.
yeah, exactly. But and I spoke to someone and they said that they spoke to someone about fear setting. Use those fears. So the fear of not living the life of your dreams, of not having that financial freedom, of not living the best life that you should be living. Let that drive you more than the fear of, oh, is real estate risky? Or should I do this deal, right? Yes, those fears are there, but use those other fears to drive you. And I love that you were able to do that, because it's true, right? We all have that choice, and we can do it, right? And I think, plenty of people have done it. And so there's no reason why you can't do it. What when you were looking at different markets, what were you looking at? Did you just pick Indianapolis because you had maybe friends and family there, or was there some deep analysis into what markets?
Oh no, I mean, there was a ton of analysis. Again, my nest egg. I wasn't going to throw that at something that just felt good. Like I had to have like in-depth analysis done so that I can make a numbers and like fact-based decision. It was the only way that this could work. So I actually looked at 30 plus different cities, spent a couple weeks like pulling in data from like the US Bureau of Labor Statistics and various other sources like the big four accounting firms. They publish their findings, like large commercial real estate vendors publish their findings of different cities and like how they think they'll perform, and did both like a quantitative and a qualitative analysis based upon the US national average. So after that, there were several cities that definitely stood out, but then you can kind of like delineate between the two. You can pull them apart. Because like you have the cities like the Austin, Texas, the Seattles, these large cities with like large tech hubs that of course they're performing better than the US national average. Like they have Microsoft and every like Facebook and everybody's there employing the best and the brightest minds in the country. However, those places are prohibitively expensive for so many people when it comes to buying a cash flowing property, and the kind of cash flow again that one might need to replace their corporate job, right? Or any job, to live off of. So then like there are also another set of cities that are, I mean, I guess these days they're better known, but do you have like the Indianapolises, the Kansas Cities, like cities in Alabama, different locations that might not necessarily have like the Facebook hubs, but there's still a lot of investment. There's diversity of employment. There are strong employers. There are growing populations for various reasons. And that's really enough, because at the end of the day, what you need to do is make sure the economy and the people around it are making enough money, and they will continue to make enough money to want housing and to be able to afford housing. Whatever your strategy might be, whether that's flipping, buy and hold, what have you, people just need to have enough money to buy houses, and you want that ability to afford housing to grow.
Yeah, very cool. Yeah. Yeah, it sounds like you did a little bit of research. Yeah, that's awesome though. That's great though. But like you said, yeah, but like you said, right? It's you worked hard for your money, you saved hard for the money. You want to make sure that money is being to the best use possible, right? Now that you've picked the market, how did you then go about? I'm guessing the next step was to build a team. Was that the case?
Yeah.
How did you go about building a team?
Just networking and trying to find people who I felt like, there are a lot of people in real estate who are biased, so they're going to have their people that they recommend, and you always have to kind of take it with a grain of salt. So it felt like people who I felt like had moral compasses that were aligned with mine, and maybe like thought similarly to as I did. So like if they thought similarly, then they'd probably choose similar people. And I just tried to get as many options as I could, and followed up and used that as like a warm lead to connect to someone else so that they would take me seriously. Because sometimes it's hard. Not sometimes, it is definitely hard as a new investor. It doesn't matter how much it doesn't matter how determined you are. There's so many people who kick tires and are smooth talkers that everyone, I don't care what they say, everyone is a little jaded by a new investor. You know what I mean? Because it's like, are you though? Are you actually going to do anything? But using those connections as kind of like a doorway into meeting people who could be my team, that was really helpful.
And then who did you start with? Who was your first piece of that puzzle?
My first piece was the property manager. So the property manager for me was the most important piece because I already had a full-time job. I wasn't going to manage from across the country. So I wanted to make sure I felt like I had somebody who was competent and would advocate for me and have my back with this house that was 1,000 miles away and tell me the truth and tell me no when I needed to hear it. And but also be as hungry as I was to grow their business as well. So.
And then from there, who did you get on your team?
I believe I got the agent next. The agent was actually in-house with the property manager, and that it was a pretty good fit for a while, so that worked out really well. I got all of my doors with that person until I moved here. And I think maybe one more after I moved here with that person. Once I moved here, I started to find people who were maybe a better fit and more aligned, because sometimes it's just hard to tell when you're a voice from the coast and you've never met the person in person, So yeah, I found the agent next, and then used those two resources to build out the list of contractors and my existing network to build out a list of contractors. And so yeah, that was basically about it. Everything else, the tax person, the title agency, lawyers, all that stuff fell into place when I needed them afterwards.
So for someone who's trying to understand who they need on the team, who do you recommend that people going to a different state have on their team just to start out?
Property manager. It doesn't matter how good the deals are. It doesn't matter how strong your analysis is. If you have someone who is going to rip you off, if you have someone who's not going to manage your properties well, if someone's not going to respond to people wanting to lease your property, that sort of thing. If you have a bad property manager, there's no overcoming that. You will lose money.
And what did you look for, and what do you still look for? Has it changed from initially? Because obviously when we start out, right, we do our research, but you learn certain things that you look for. So what makes a good property management company?
Well, now I rely very heavily on other investors' feedback. My big thing has been to network, and I make sure to have a strong network of investors. So I talk to investors first, and I talk to them. I like to have people who work with people who have systems, so there's a way for a tenant to easily reach them after hours. They have a strong leasing network. They have systems in place to get back to people as soon as someone calls as a warm lead to lease a property. I want people who are hungry and have a strong network of contractors, and I think there's also the moral compass piece. You can tell who is hungry, and who's gonna, with a little bit of time, who's gonna do the right thing. And so those are things that I definitely look for.
Yeah, very cool, very cool. And like you said, a property management company, a good property management company can turn average property pretty good, but a bad property management company can turn a good property pretty damn bad pretty quickly. So that's a great piece of advice.
And if they're investors as well, that also helps because then they'll understand to an extent, they will get why you might feel a certain way about certain things, and they'll understand the nuances of certain areas. I like to have people on my team who I can also consult with, so if I'm going into a new area, or when I moved here, I can call them and be well, I'm looking to branch out. What do you think about X, Y, and Z? Or it's been a year since I bought a property. What areas are hot right now? Which areas are not? What are the trends you're seeing in the market? That sort of, where do people want to live? That sort of thing, so also being in touch with people who enjoy doing that, I think is also really helpful.
Yeah, that's a great piece of advice. So let's talk about your first property, because that's for a lot of people that's the hardest one. That's the most interesting one a lot of times. And yours was out of state, obviously. So what was your first property, and how did that all come about, and how did it work?
So that was a property actually off the MLS. And it's just so crazy, how much has changed in 3 years, because it's in one of the most affluent areas of the Indianapolis suburbs. And these days you can't find anything for that price point or that low cash flow. I was actually driving for dollars in that area, thinking, God, I'm so lucky to get in and to find and understand what I was looking at too, because people kind of do the echo chamber thing where they all try to go to the same area and they all say the same thing, and a lot of people weren't talking about these areas, but I knew it would make a good investment. So I went after it anyway. And that was very, I'm very grateful to have looked at it a little bit differently than anyone else. So at the time I purchased it, it was purchased the home for 95,000. It was a single family, 2 bedroom, 1 bathroom, and it has a detached carriage house. That's a 1 bedroom, 1 bathroom, like 400 square feet, tiny, like built in 1900. It's just like, it was completely derelict when I bought it. It was a mess. It was disgusting. And I had it refied. So I bought it in April of 2000. I think I've been doing this 3 years. So 2021 minus 3, that's 2018. So April 2018. And then when I moved here, a year and a half later, I had it refinanced and got it reappraised. It was already at worth 150K at that point. So like just buying the property and holding on to it, like that was a pretty sweet like equity boost, right? And one half of it is a long-term rental that rents for about $850, and the other half is an Airbnb that nets, not like gross. Gross is like $2,000, but it's like so expensive to keep an Airbnb going. So like it nets probably $800 to $1,000 a month. So affluent area, we're looking at 1,800, 2% rulish, which is pretty sweet. I'm pretty grateful for that. Yeah, and it wasn't always an Airbnb. And I definitely, when I bought it, again, like that little nest egg, I couldn't afford most of the renovations. I just was like, what do I have to do to get this up and running? And we're just going to do that because that is all the money I've got right now, you know? So like Airbnb was still kind of a mess, you know? When I turned it, the carriage house was still a mess for like the first year. It was serviceable, and that was it. And I got a tenant in, and then she moved out the next year. And after I started using it as an Airbnb, and I was like, fine, it was in the details of like how the house works. Like, I don't even know how she lasted a year. Like the heat wasn't great, like this, that, and the other. Like, oh my goodness, I had to have a new furnace system, like have it re-insulated. But it's been like a pretty sweet little property for me.
That's interesting. But it's when you were looking, did you have a criteria when you start looking at these deals, or did you just want to be in this area? Because the 2-1 for one thing isn't always the most attractive in terms of renting or whatever, right? Did you just see it was like, and you maybe, yeah, go ahead, sorry. No, yeah, no, I was just, yeah.
No, it definitely, a 2-1 was definitely not what I wanted. Like people tend to outgrow bathrooms first, you know? So like I definitely wanted a minimum of a 2 bathroom, and being in this area, it's the property values have increased for a reason, and they have some of the best school districts in the area, and they're low crime, you know? So when you're buying in an area that has really good school districts, you're there because like people have families. People are going to move out or outgrow a 2 bedroom, 1 bathroom really quickly, you know? So it was definitely not my ideal by any means, but I looked around the area enough to know that at this price point, what I was getting was a really good deal. You know, I was like, okay, so it's basically 2 houses for the price of one. I'm seeing a lot of 2-1s for like a little over 100. So if I can get this for 95 and I have both, what more? And I ran my numbers, like I wanted like at least a 1.3% price to rent ratio. And at the time, with both as long-term rentals, I could do that. I was buying it for 95, put close to 10K in to renovate, and then one side was renting for 800, and I rented the other side for 500. So like that was a pretty sweet deal for me. Even though like it was not ideal by any means, it was still, the numbers still worked well enough, you know, that I knew I could make it work.
Yeah. What made you decide to turn that one side into an Airbnb? What was, you know, you always hear the term highest and best use, right? And obviously kind of, what kind of...
I think it's really important to have like good investor friends in your network, and people who will be like, no, you're not doing what you should be, you know? So, and people have different kinds of expertise as well. And so it really wasn't in my vision to turn it into an Airbnb. I knew it probably wasn't the best use. It wasn't so lucrative as a long-term rental, but I was at a conference, and I was, it was kind of in my head, but like I wasn't ready to take the leap because I was like, I'm still working full time. I don't have time to learn how to run an Airbnb. Like that's like a whole nother thing. But again, luckily I was like at a conference, and I have a couple friends, one of whom who just loves the Airbnb model. She has like made it work, you know, and she's done really well with it. And I was telling her, you know, I was like, I have this carriage house, the lease is about to end. I don't really know. It's like a weird property, and I don't think anyone's going to stay over a year, blah, blah, blah. I don't know if I want to turn it into an Airbnb. And she was like asking me questions. And then she said, you know, this is absolutely the kind of property I would like to buy. And I specifically look for in order to turn into an Airbnb. So then we had this, like, it's also important to know kind of like what value you bring to the table. So through like my corporate life, I've had roles where like I will create like systems and kind of like processes around some sort of analysis or some sort of output, right? And so she was wanting to launch a course. She didn't really have time to like document all of her thoughts and put it on paper, and I didn't have time to learn the Airbnb. So we're at a conference and we both looked at each other and we're like, screw the conference, like let's make this work. So like she taught me everything she knew about Airbnb, and I would like scribe it and then like tell her to talk through it and then like reword it so that it would like make sense to someone outside of her head. And so like we had this really cool like value add situation that was unique to ourselves and to each other to be able, so that I could launch this Airbnb. And that's really how it came about for me.
It's pretty cool. It's been the power of networking once again, right? It's such a powerful thing that you hear all the time, but it's important that people really realize how cool it is.
Like I would not be where I am today if not for my network. There's not a shot in hell. Like people ask me, oh, what do you think about this? Or where do you think your strengths are? And I'm like, I don't know anything. My friends know everything. So I might not have the answer, but I know who does, and they will talk to you. Networking awesome. Is everything in this business. And it's like also authentic networking. Like you can't just be like, I'll give you this, I'll give you that. Like it's just, you have to want to be around these people. You have to actually want to be friends with them, because if they're just like, someone could be so successful, but if you can't stand being around them, like that's never going to work, you know? So like EQ and networking is just so critical in this realm.
Yeah, I love that you say that. Even if it's someone that can offer you tons of whatever, if they're just a crappy person you can't stand them, what's the point, right? Are you really gonna lower yourself to do that, right? Yeah, I'm all about that as well. Was there a reason then so you did that one carriage house as an Airbnb? Was there a reason then that you didn't go and do a bunch of Airbnbs? Because I think they're all long-term holds, right? The other 7 units that you have.
Yeah, because they're all bigger units, and I didn't want. So like I feel like, with where the economy is and potentially something coming down the pike, I didn't want to be stuck with the holding costs of this massive unit, which needed like a higher, had like a higher floor, like a higher minimum to rent out and all of this other stuff, when I didn't know what was going to happen, you know, because hospitality travel, that's based on discretionary income. Whereas with the small places, like I really love that, because then you can lower it, you can market to a specific kind of travel, that sort of thing. And I haven't yet turned my other 2-1 yet, because I've got a tenant there and she pays right on time, you know. And I started 6 months before COVID hit, my Airbnb. And so in the middle of COVID, I wasn't about to turn anything else into an Airbnb either, you know? So there's also like the whole timing of what was happening in our world. So
yeah. And I know we're kind of running out of time a little bit here. This is such a fun conversation. I'm guilty of asking too many questions, but how did you scale from that first property? Well, there's 2 properties essentially, but the first purchase into sort of 9 units at this point. How were you able to do that?
Financing everything basically with the lowest money down possible. So my first one was conventionally financed. My next 3 doors, 1 duplex was conventionally financed, and the third door, was bought off seller financing with 0 down. Then I house hacked, and then I used a debt partnership where I like bird the property, you know, because I was doing all of this off of my like one income, and it's just like what's left after I pay for my living expenses and everything else, you know. So it's not like I have a ton of money to put into things. So it's just about understanding what options are and like how to creatively use those to work for you and to grow without kind of putting yourself at risk too much.
Yeah, I love that. And people tell me all the time, I can't do real estate because I don't have money, right? But it's like, there's so many different creative ways and stuff that you can do to maximize what little money you have, right? And a lot of times you need money to invest in real estate, but it doesn't always have to be your own even, right? And there's so much stuff that you can do. That's so cool.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
So the seller financing deal, how did that come about?
The guy just offered it.
So that's the secret. If anyone wants seller financing, just get them to offer it. Is that?
No, I mean, that's actually, so that was, I've done 2 seller financing deals since then, seller finance deals. The second one I ended up not closing on, but I negotiated so that I could sell the contract to someone else. So I did end up making money off of it. But seller financing, it's like, it works best when they own the property outright. In certain states, you can do like subject tos or different kind of assignments to make it work. But that depends on the mortgage, depends on the situation, depends on the state. Some certain pieces are harder to do in Indiana, but when a person owns the property outright, and it also depends on kind of like their motives, what they need. The second seller financing deal I did, the owner was fine with getting like cash payments for a couple months, or a year, whatever it was that I negotiated, instead of getting the lump sum. There's also like the ability to earn more income off of the interest that you're paying them and that sort of thing, and show them, okay, yeah, well, in 5 years, you can get your full amount of X, but in the 5 years leading up to that, you're still going to get money. So at the end of the day, you walk away with a lot more, so it's just really about kind of, I think, understanding their needs and you don't want to force it. Like, that never works ever. But if there's a possibility that it could work, then there's no reason not to bring it up. Worst they can do right now.
And educating them, right? That's the important part as well. Like you said, on those points that you brought, so that they understand what they're getting when they're doing a seller financing.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
The equity partnership, how did you set that? How did that come about, and how did you set that up?
So that was actually a debt partnership, and that was through a buddy. So again, just building the relationships. He was in like, the FIRE world, financial independence, retire early. So like, I had known him through a mutual friend who connected us. Like, I was on his podcast like a while ago. We became friends, and he wanted to get into real estate. Like, I was teaching him some stuff, and then it came time, like, I was like, okay, I think I would like to take someone on. He was like, I'll give you money if you teach me and you give me the interest. So like, I went through every part of the process, from negotiating with the wholesaler to the rehab to like every single thing with him, and then also gave him the interest rate. So he made money and he learned. And so since then, I've kind of cannibalized my own lender in that sense, because now that he's learned, he's just buying all of his own properties. And I'm like, yo, where's my money?
You should never have taught him anything. Yeah.
No, it was such a great experience. And like, I don't know, doing good always brings good back to you, So I think like, when I get to the point that I want another lender, I'm sure that like I can reach out to him and be like, do you know of anyone? And he would be happy to reach out for me, because that was a good experience. So.
Yeah, and I'm sure plenty of people listening here would want to be a partner, because obviously what you're talking about, you're successful. But so some people who don't understand, maybe, what's the difference between an equity partner and a debt partner?
So with a debt partnership, I pay an interest rate, right? So like so I say, hey, give me, let's say the property is $50,000. I'm like, hey, give me like the loan of $50,000. I'll pay you 10% a year, 10% a month, principal and interest. This is what it comes out to. Or you can just do interest only until you want to exit them. But it basically comes down to like, you're giving them a fixed payment of the interest rate. You're paying on the debt. So like, an equity partner could be structured a little bit differently. Like, I will phrase it like in terms of a flip, right? So like, a person brings like X amount to the table, and then when you sell the property, you'll be like, okay, well, here's the split. You get X amount of the sale. So sometimes for more experienced investors, the equity partnership can be a little bit more interesting, because like, if you lend 50,000, you might get like 5,000 if it's like a year and it's like X percent, 10%. Whereas if you lend 50,000, you want to be like an equity partner on a flip, and the flip sells for like 100,000, and you split the proceeds 50-50, then it's like 25K each. These are very, very simple terms, but like, you can kind of see where there's the ability to grow that income more. However, with the equity partnership, depending on what's done in the strategy, there's more risk, because what if the flip doesn't sell? What if something happens during the renovation process and all of a sudden it costs 80,000, and then it sits on the market for 8 months or 9 months. And then you end up only being able to sell it for 70, and you actually end up losing 15K. So then you actually don't even get your entire principal back. right? So not only do you not make a profit, you don't even get your initial money back. So that's kind of like something that you want to think about if you're considering debt versus equity, either for yourself or for a partner.
Yeah, very cool, very cool. Thanks for explaining that. What's next for you?
Man, if I
Good question.
No, I'm joking. So like right now I am actually looking to start flipping. I'm looking for deals. I have a partner on the ground. It's taken me a long time to decide to want to work with the partner. I'm very like fiscally conservative. So I have a partner here in Indy who does volume flips. And so I'm going to be working with him and like working with people within my network who also want to earn kind of like an income, to see if they want to do a debt partnership as well. And just putting all the pieces together to start doing some flipping while the market is good.
Yeah, very cool. And is that flipping the idea to create more of a nest egg type capital that you can invest in rentals?
Exactly.
That's mad. That's cool. And partnering is a great way to do it, right? If you have someone that's understands flipping already and then doing it, if you can get them to partner with you, that's a great way to go. That's cool.
Yeah,
cool.
Definitely.
Cool. Well, cool story. Well, and we didn't even touch on the tennis stuff. That's
Well, I guess you just have to have me back, Barry.
Anytime. You're the busy person here. Anytime. We could just talk about the tennis next time. But yeah, cool. Well, hey, thank you for sharing all that. There's so much more we could have talked about. It was really fun talking to you. But as this show is called Wrestling with Real Estate, I'd like to incorporate some wrestling-related real estate questions. And the first question is, what would your wrestling name be?
Oh, God. Okay, so I thought about this and then I completely blanked.
So it could be anything. It could be something your friends call you, or like maybe your parents call you, or like.
I don't know.
Well, yeah, that works. Pain in the ass. Sunny the pain in the ass.
Yeah, I don't know. I think there was like your pet's name and the first street you grew up on. Like
yeah, that works. What is yours?
Okay, I'm not going to finish that sentence. My first pet was Tigger, which was a dog.
Okay.
Kind of like your dog,
a small one. Yeah, my dog's called Hulk.
So I don't really have a good answer for this. I like to be entertaining, but this isn't entertaining at all. So like the street I grew up on was Cortez Road. So Tigger Cortez.
Yeah, that works. Tigger. Can we call it Tiger?
Like Winnie the Pooh, Tigger.
Oh, okay, Tigger. Yeah. Tigger Cortez. Yeah, that's not a bad one.
God, it says, are we actually going to air this?
Yeah, we are. It's all good. Tigger Cortez. Cool. Okay. That works. I've heard worse wrestling names, that's for sure. And every wrestler has a special move. What is your special move in real estate?
Finding people who know information and finding people to make things work, whether that's like finding the right lender for the financing, finding the person who wants to buy a mobile home park 2 days before my earnest money goes hard, like through social media, like I think networking and putting people together and putting people with situations and opportunities, and also kind of broadening my own circle through doing that. I think that is how I've managed to get ahead the most. That would be my special move.
But that's a great move, because that's the awesome thing about real estate, right? You don't need to know everything, right? You can just know a little bit about here and just leverage people's skills, other people's knowledge, right? You can leverage all of that. And that's the amazing thing about real estate to me, is that you don't need to know everything. You can just...
It's the ultimate leverage. You can use leverage in every way, whether that's debt, people, like it's just, it's incredible.
Yeah. Awesome. What's been the biggest body slam you've taken in your real estate career?
It's this house that I still have. Barry, this place drives me insane. Okay. So like I'm hoping that I can sell it within the next month or two. So I got it last year. It was a great learning experience. It was like the first time I took on that debt partner, like I rehabbed it. It was the first property I bought after I moved to Indianapolis. That wasn't like a place I was living in. It was such a great learning experience. However, then I got like this tenant, and the house was between the tenant, who's kind of hellish, and a house that's older, and just there's some older houses that aren't built well, and this house is one of those that just isn't built well. And so there was a ton of deferred maintenance that I didn't know at the time of purchase. So things started breaking after I got it. And then, so that was a little bit rough, but then then COVID hit, and like my tenant had the brilliant idea, if I call public health, then I don't have to pay rent. And it's like, sorry, sweetheart, it doesn't work like that. Not that my place was bad. Let me caveat that. Like top to bottom, it was like, it like sparkled. Okay, it didn't sparkle, but like it was very clean and bright. And like, I literally scrubbed like what probably was vomit off the walls with my bare hands, like renovating this. It was just like, it was so gross, but like turned it around, and like the tenant didn't really take care of it. And she called public. She had like everything she put in orders for, I fixed right away. And the ironic thing is, the month that she called public health on me was a month I had $1,700 in repairs in her home. So it's not like I wasn't doing anything. I was like doing everything I could. And then of course, public health comes in, and they always find things, right? So they found a bunch of things, and like, this was like my low moment. Like, I got bids from contractors, and there's one who was basically like, well, we have to demo the whole house, tear off the roof. It's going to be $30,000. And I'm like, I'm going to like the home improvement store, like having a panic attack in the parking lot, like in tears, like crying behind my mask as I walked through looking for paint. It was just like a complete disaster. And so I ended up finding a contractor like to do it, like one of my guys. And then a week before and I finally like had it under control, and I was like, okay, I'm gonna get through this, and then like I'll figure out next steps. So let me just get out, because public health, you get code violations that can be thousands of dollars. You can't get out of it until they come back and they approve and they say, yeah, this is in good shape again, you know? And so a week before work starts, and like 3 weeks before it's supposed to be walked again, my contractor and his wife got COVID. And so then they had to quarantine for 2 weeks. And I was like, oh my God, they're fine, thankfully. But then I just remember sitting at like my friend's table. Actually, I was with Kim. You interviewed Kim. Yeah. And I'm sitting at her dining room table, like, and our friends are like, you just look like your dog got run over. And I'm like explaining the situation. And it was just like awful. And so then I got those round of fixes in. And then 6 weeks later, public health goes back again, and they're not taking care of the apartment. And they send more code violations my way, because like there's like mildew on the windows and stuff, and she's not like cleaning anything, and like they're like without enough ventilation, like mold does grow sometimes, you know. And so like they found like some spots, and I was like, I can't send a cleaning crew in her house. So then I had to send someone else back out. I haven't gotten the bill for that yet. And so that's kind of like the body slam that's been happening repeatedly, again and again. Hopefully it ends soon, but like these things happen, you know. And
yeah, I'm sorry that happened. That's bad, but it seems like that hasn't put you off that, right? So
No.
For anyone who's listening who wants to get involved in real estate, right, and they're scared of like the worst thing happening, right, which that was pretty bad, right? But the truth of the matter is, you're still in real estate, right? You'd rather be in real estate and have these problems than not be in real. Yeah.
So like there was this one podcast I was listening to. I think it was Annie Duke. I'm losing my, she is, I think, the poker player. She's a poker player, right? And she was talking about decision-making under stress. And so she said that like she used this term called like resulting. People will kind of weigh or judge their decisions based upon the results, you know? And so in real estate, you're going to have bad results sometimes. Like, you're just dealing with so many different kinds of people. There's just no way. But that doesn't mean that the decision was bad. If like your analysis is good and you're making sound decisions, like maybe the sixth decision is rough, has a rough outcome, but the other five will carry you through. Like, you just have to make sure you're not over leveraged and you have like cash to weather the storm.
Yeah. And like you said, it's impossible to make every right decision, right? You've just got to, like you said, analyze it and do the best, and understand that sometimes even if you did everything right, stuff will go wrong, right? It's just the nature of the beast. Yeah, but it doesn't mean that you did something wrong a lot of times, you know. Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah. Well, thank you for sharing that, and I'm sorry that you had to go through that, but I'm sure there were some learning lessons along the way. So, you know, you earn or you learn, right? I like that saying a lot. You earn or you learn. There's a lot of learning.
That's a good one. You burn or you learn.
Yeah. So was there a moment that you were standing on the top rope getting ready to jump, but you were too scared? What was it, and how did you overcome it?
There have been like so many times. I think Like, I mean, when you say like too scared, like I think there are times where I was very scared, but it's still like, what scares me more? Like never jumping and never knowing and continuing to live this life, or actually taking it, making something happen. So, I mean, I think one of the times that I was super scared was when I was moving out here. My portfolio was already successful. It was growing. I was moving out for reasons outside of real estate, but there were also like very real, like tangible things that I would gain from moving out here for the real estate, you know? And so that was one time I was like terrified, you know, like I didn't know hardly anyone here. My entire like support system was in Boston. Everyone, like all the people I cared about were there, you know? And like if I was in Boston and things went wrong, I would have a net to fall back on. Here I didn't have that, you know, but I knew it was still like the right decision for me. And so like still making that move. And even though like I knew everything I was losing, you know, I think that's kind of like what the fear comes down to. You look at everything you can lose, and the gains are in your head. They're what you think, they're theories. They're not real yet, you know? And that was like the very big fear for me. What if like I was moving out and like everything just went to hell and I just like wasted X years of my life? But the potential for something greater was what pushed me. And it is that potential and that dream and that like that why that has got me through all of the different ones. Like when I was sitting at my desk at like 6:30 p.m. in my Boston office, like about to hit send on that wire for, I think it was like $35,000 for that first house for the down payment. And I was just like, this is more money than I've ever had at one point. Like, and I'm staring at Zillow at this little yellow house going, I've literally never been to Indiana. Like, what am I doing? Have I lost my damn mind? You know, but a life of regret is worse than allowing that fear to stop you. And we only get one life. I'm not about to live it with those kind of regrets, because I didn't summon the courage to take that step.
I love that. That's
off the top rope. That step off the top rope.
Yeah. Top off. Yeah. No, you
like
jumped.
That?
You jumped. That was amazing. Yeah. But that's so I'm all about that. Like a life, like one of the biggest fears I have is like being like 85 and being on my deathbed or whatever, and looking back on my life and thinking, wow, what more? Yeah. And there's going to be regrets. I'm sure there's going to be stuff I wish I'd done better or blah, blah, blah. But could I have done more? Could I have like lived a better life? And that scares me, because we get to that age so quickly. Like if you ask an 85-year-old now, do they remember being 20? They said, yeah, it was like yesterday, right? There's still that, you know, they still have that young person inside them, and that scares me. And I think that should drive every one of us, I think, you know what I mean? To be more, to want to live better, to do everything, I think, that we can to have a life of no regrets. I think it's so powerful. So I think that's a good place to finish, probably. How can we top that? I don't know if we can top that, right?
Mic drop.
Well, hey, Suni, this has been awesome. I genuinely really, really appreciate you sharing everything that you've done. You've got such an awesome. Well, yeah, this is a fun. I don't know if it was like the first one. Maybe it was, maybe it wasn't. I don't know. You'll have to check out both to find out, I guess. But if people want to reach out and get in touch, if people want to find out more about what you've got going on, how can they do so?
So I have a website, griffithspropertygroup.com. They can email me through the site. It's spelled GRIFFIX Property Group. I also share a lot of my real estate stuff, random adventures on my personal Instagram profile. So that's Suni, SUNI _Rao, RAO, and then another underscore. So like I usually am able to check those messages as well, whatever is easiest.
Very cool. Very cool. Well, like I said, it was an absolute pleasure having you on my show, and have an awesome rest of your day out there in Indianapolis.
Thank you. You too.